When the average person thinks of adrenaline, they think of magnificent, thrilling scenarios such as skydiving or mountain climbing or stealing a cookie from the cookie jar. But whenever I think of that foul hormone, I think of driving up on a stop sign that I wasn't expecting, or when the vending machine won't take my dollar bill, or whenever I'm out shopping and the only checkouts that are open are self-checkouts. Adrenaline gets squirted into our systems the moment anything of interest happens. Without it, life would be quite boring, but it certainly isn't always the harbinger of good things occurring around us. More often than not, it and its close companion cortisol rear their heads whenever something inconveniences us, like when the highway department closes down one lane for several miles on our commute so that they can scamper around with leaf blowers for several months. There's tens of thousands of things in this overcooked Brussels sprout surprise of a planet we call home that are annoying. And I've sat here for weeks, stewing like a bitter old hermit, pondering all of life's irritations and sorting them based on severity. I intend for this list to eventually be exhaustive and something that aliens or AI can reference when they need to learn something that they can help us avoid. And we'll already have this list ready for them when they get here. So let's take ourselves a gander at Volume 1 of the most annoying things in life. Now, before we get started, I do want to clarify that this will be formatted like a tier list, but not in the same sense as what you're used to seeing in tens of thousands of videos on YouTube. This one, since it's covering a negative topic, will be reversed, so that what would normally be an S ranking will be on the bottom, as it's the least annoying relative to the other entries, and the worst, most upsetting items will be at the top in what would usually be the F tier. But for the purposes of this list, however, I've taken a little bit of creative liberty, and the 5 categories are as follows. S tier is, it'll be fine. A tier is, well, this is a bit of a sticky wicket, but not to worry. B tier is, well, don't that just beat all? C tier is, this mess right here gonna do me a mischief. F tier is, I'm going home to mother. Now, I do want to stress that we will only be covering annoyances and inconveniences, okay? I don't want anybody thinking that there's going to be things like tornadoes and funerals on this list, okay? Those are a little bit above annoying. That's a different list for a different video and one that I don't plan to make. Anyways, thank you for letting me interject real quick. And by the by, I do need your input on something when we get to the end of the video, so please don't go anywhere. I need your help with something, okay? Smashing your teeth together accidentally. Whether it's because you bit into food that's softer than expected, or because you bumped your chin on something, maybe you slipped on a comedically positioned skateboard and fell kersplat onto your ungainly tuchus. Regardless of how it happens, bashing your chompers together with reckless abandon is a severely unfun experience that'll send chills down to your tootsies. This mess right here is gonna make me do a mischief tier. Rock in your shoe. Speaking of tootsies, anyone who possesses a functional pair of land flippers is painfully familiar with the quandary of having something underfoot that's not supposed to be there. Maybe you were walking on concrete and kicked a pebble up into your own shoe, or mayhaps you were chainsawing a tree that fell during a Category 4 hurricane that blasted all your earthly possessions to kingdom come, and a wood chip flies up under your clodhoppers. Things just don't feel right until you stop whatever you had going on and attend to the issue. It's fairly easy to overcome regardless of how aggravating it is to be thusly interrupted, so it'll go into the, well, this is a bit of a sticky wicket, but not to worry tier. Biting your lip while eating. All you wanted to do was to take a chomp out of that bagel that you so painstakingly smeared a dollop of blueberry jam, I just banged my elbow onto, and thousands of years before you, some loincloth-clad dude faced the same problem as he crunched onto a side of beef that he had just freshly pulled off of the fire. Having lips is important as they keep stuff out that needs to stay out, but it sure would be nice if they didn't dive so unceremoniously betwixt our toothies as we try to sustain ourselves. There is no justifiable reason for this to happen, nor is there a feasible way to prevent it from happening, and once you've done it, the resulting swelling practically guarantees that you will do it again, making an already painful wound much worse. This is going in the I'm going home to mother tier. Dentists who press the pick too hard. There are several nurses working with a dentist that I've been visiting since childhood, and they're all very nice, good-hearted people, but there is one in particular who used to do my teeth cleaning appointments, whom I thought for years had it out for me. I'm telling you something. See, sometimes I swore this nurse was going to bring out a 10-pound sledgehammer to help her drive her pick down through my jaw as she cleaned. I'm always mortified to learn that she's been assigned to me, as a 5-minute cleaning would leave me with sore gums and teeth for hours afterwards, and finding out that literally any other nurse in this establishment had been assigned to me instead would evoke a veritable gasp of relief, knowing that I would walk out of that dentist office that day without feeling like I'd eaten rebar for breakfast. Such heavy-handed nurses are never intentionally inflicting such agony, thus they skate by with a, well, don't that just beat all ranking. Power or internet outage. Becoming dependent on either of these two resources is nothing to be ashamed of. Just as ancient culinary savants became dependent upon their wooden drills to start their fires, and generations of yesteryear relied on gas to heat their homes, so too do we depend upon electricity to keep us functional and the internet to keep us productive and sane. Having those legs of life's chair kicked out by some unforeseen mischance is quite the unsettling quandary to be stricken with, no matter how reliant you are upon either. Having no air conditioning in the middle of summer can easily lead to sleepless days and miserable nights, and having no internet can leave you unable to access your business, your finances, or even the family and social circles that you count on to keep you settled. Considering how disruptive such outages are to daily life and how powerless we are to fix them, this easily gets an "I'm going home to mother" ranking. Being tailgated. When a person meets an untimely fate, there is no method by which they may respawn, load a previous saved state, or otherwise continue after the fact, at least not in this mortal realm. Despite this axiom, there are those who drive as if colliding with obstacles as they guide their 2-ton passenger rocket at a high rate of speed will simply result in them spontaneously reappearing in their beds. Such behavior is, of course, intensely and unfathomably stupid, and is often only correctable by the driver unfortunately suffering the inevitable consequences. But even this may not be enough to resolve the root problems of self-absorption, unmitigated contempt for others, and laughable feelings of invincibility, leading to repetition of the previous dangerous driving behavior. If a person exhibiting such monstrous lack of self-preservation ends up behind you, merely removing your foot from the gas pedal may result in a crash. Due to the inherent danger of this example, as well as the pure evil heart of the tailgating driver, this gets an "I'm going home to mother" ranking. Driving behind a slow driver in the left lane. Slightly less unnerving is the experience of driving behind someone who is traveling below the speed limit in the passing lane. I'll be honest with you, I don't mind driving slowly. You'll usually find me traveling in the right lane, going the speed limit, plus or minus 2 or 3 miles an hour. But driving is the single most dangerous thing that the average person does on a regular basis, so why throw in the extra unnecessary added risk of speed? However, as a general rule, and in many states as the law dictates, you must travel in the right lane if you are keeping to the speed limit or less. The left lane is reserved for passing other cars, hence being called the fast lane, but certain unscrupulous drivers will practically coast in the left lane for miles. If you're unfortunate enough to get stuck behind one in even medium traffic, you will likely find it impossible to get back into the right lane as enraged speeders whiz by you. This is going into "this mess right here gonna make me do a mischief" tier. When your GPS lies to you. As a construction worker, my place of work changes every few months or so as we complete old projects and begin new ones. The most painful part of this cycle is invariably the first week of a new project, where I must become accustomed to the new location, the new conditions, and most importantly, the route to get there. Oftentimes, the address that I'm given to put into my GPS app is wrong, as projects that are fairly newly begun do not have their street addresses registered yet in the app, which must then approximate within a few miles of the intended location. And to make matters worse, sometimes the route plotted is extremely convoluted or maybe even impossible. My GPS has tried to take me through people's driveways, school parking lots, and even an active military base in one particularly extreme case from a few years ago. When GPS works, it takes all the stress out of a commute, but when it fails, we become exposed to the frightful oblivion of being lost in a 196.9 million square mile bowl of forests, oceans, and unfamiliarity. So that goes in the "well, don't that just beat all" tier. Hard chunk in soft food. Our sensory perception capabilities are primarily calibrated around our sense of self-preservation. Every nerve in your body is responsible for sensing possible danger, at least the ones that are limited to your 5 senses. And anything that seems out of the ordinary is immediately taken note of, from a rock in your shoe to a rock in your food. Seriously, there's nothing quite like getting that chill whenever you bite into a hamburger and crunch down on an unidentified particle that's as hard as gravel and small as a grain of rice. The gag reflex kicks in, and an otherwise delightful meal is interrupted by unceremoniously spitting an entire mouthful of food into the trash can just to be safe. Since this is usually amended by just trashing the problematic section of food, but can still pose a possible choking hazard in rare cases, this goes into the "this mess right here gonna make me do a mischief" tier. Bumping your head or your knee, etc. There is a cabinet in my grandmother's kitchen that has had 3 generations of heads bashed upon it. It's screwed to the ceiling just above the little center island right there next to the stove, and every year at Thanksgiving or Christmas when we go visit, you could just about guarantee that either my grandfather, my dad, my uncle, or I would end up stooping over the countertop just slightly as we set out plates of holiday food for Grandma, and as we would come back up, we would bash our heads in the bottom of the cabinet. I come from a long line of noggin thumpers, and let me tell you something, Sonny. There are a few things in life that make my belly button wrap around my behind, quite like bebopping through a day without a care in the world and suddenly coming to a full stop with my poor cabeza impacting a hard surface. Sure, bumping your knee on the bottom of a desk or your toe on the leg of a table is most assuredly not a fun way to spend an afternoon, but hitting your head is a terrible, emotionally hurtful experience, thus landing it in the "will don't that just beat all" tier. Waking up too early. Sleep is the most fun that the average adult has, if my life is any barometer, and thus it is something that we would prefer to do as much as possible. Being able to shut off the world with all of its heartaches and enjoy the serenity of life's built-in time skip feature is a luxury, and it's a crying shame that it causes so much difficulty. Many folks struggle with just getting to sleep to begin with, and others wake up several times a night with a quick jaunt to the loo on their mind, but probably the most upsetting form of sleep inconvenience is waking up several hours before the alarm clock says it's time to get up and go to work. There is no worse way to start the day than starting it off with all of your morning energy being wasted before the workday even begins. And for me, it's gotten so bad that unless I go to bed around like 10 p.m. as opposed to my preferred 8, I will inevitably wake up at midnight and be completely unable to sleep. Because this could set you up for a day of heavily fatigued drudgery and consequentially an untold host of other problems, this gets an "I'm going home to mother" tier. Sneezing repeatedly. My great-grandfather held our family's record for the most sneezes in an hour at 132, which sounds absolutely insane, but if you think that's bad, I broke his record 2 years ago during a bout of the flu and set the new record at an appalling 185 an hour, just a tad more than 3 sneezes a minute. Believe me when I say it is a highly painful experience, okay? After about 70, your face starts to feel swollen, you start sweating, and oddly enough, you get very hungry. I don't think that's because of the calories that you're burning with your intermittent respiratory detonation, since a sneeze is generally understood to be only about half a calorie. But I know for sure that an extended period of blasting air out of your face is definitely going to bring about a ravenous desire to locate the nearest can of beans. I don't believe that many people have this problem, so I won't put too much thought into it, but it is an issue that has plagued my family ever since the Belgian green cheese smiths first cut out the moon. So I'll put this in a, this rest right here is going to take you to a mischief ranking, or however I say it. Slow water heater when it's time to take a shower. After a hard day of folding napkins and stirring a steaming pot of saran wrap mixture, there's nothing a working fellow wants to do more than dive headlong into a good hot shower. Washing away the evils met along the way throughout the day is a spiritual event that calms the mind and at least temporarily alleviates the overwhelming stench. And of course, as with all good things, there's some sort of complication that can arise right when we need it to not do that. Water heaters are malevolent beasts, requiring a bunch of electricity to operate and never delivering the heat at the moment that your poor strained heart needs it the most. Depending on a variety of factors, primarily the distance of the heater from your shower, as well as other ridiculous stuff like insulation and the age and condition of the heating coils, you might spend an inordinate amount of time standing outside the tub, tapping your foot as you hold your icicle-clad hand under the freezing stream, waiting for any sign of increased molecular vibration. It is a minor annoyance that is fixed by simply waiting. But the only difference between waiting on a water heater and skydiving into a neutron star is the expense of a house versus that of a spacecraft. But I'll put it into the it'll be fine tier. Portable toilets. This is a very disgusting topic, so I will not go into detail about it just in case you might be eating. I know there are some folks who have said that they pop a bag of popcorn before they watch my videos, and I would not dare betray the trust of viewers who grant me the distinct honor of being popcorn worthy, believe you me. The one and only vague detail I will expound upon regarding using such facilities, it is that it is dehumanizing. Pure and simple. You're like a cat doing your business in a plastic box. This belongs very far into the "I'm going home to mother" tier. Waking up to a low phone battery. What was once a fairly harmless inconvenience is now a treacherous problem. I remember a time whenever alarm clocks plugged into the wall back when flip phones were the hot new trend. As the technology within cell phones has improved, such relics as alarm clocks have gone the way of landline and calculators. Phones today bear more responsibilities than practically any other item we interface with on the reg, and waking us up when it's time to go to work is one of them. So that's why it is particularly upsetting when you wake up one morning to find that plastic brick you've entrusted your career with didn't have the charging cable pushed in all the way, and now you're an hour late to the office. Because this can be solved by simply charging the phone or buying a real clock, but it can make you late for appointments. It gets a, well, this is a bit of a sticky wicket, but not to worry, ranking. Getting one foot wet. Anyone who owns a floor, or who has ever walked upon one, understands the sheer absurdity of taking a step and finding that your foot lands in an unseen pile of liquid. Walking through your kitchen in the middle of the night, attempting to locate the nearest snack, when suddenly your left sock finds a patch of freezing cold water on the linoleum, and you scramble for a light switch to reveal the source and scope of this intrusion. This is easily fixed with the swift application of a towel and a fresh sock. But if you're out and about and you end up finding a puddle with your non-waterproof shoe, this can turn into an uncomfortable escapade if you don't keep a clean pair in your vehicle. And so this will go in the, it'll be fine tier. Low fuel tank. This is a significantly worse problem than having an empty phone battery. Although you almost always see this coming, there is nothing good or fun about needing to find a gas station. I myself have once dealt with the headache of running out of fuel and getting stuck on the side of the road miles from home. I was driving an old 96 F-150 at the time, which had 2 gas tanks, and whenever I saw that the front tank was nearly empty, I hit the switch to engage the rear tank, and that's when I learned that the rear tank had stopped sending fuel, and I wound up running out of gas 6 miles from home and 10 miles from the nearest gas station. My father came to rescue me with a gas can in hand, and that truck did eventually suffer a complete failure of the fuel system. So, due to my bitterness over that experience, as well as my bitterness over electric cars not being a cheap alternative, this gets a "this mess right here gonna make me do a mischief" ranking. Leaking roof. Ever since Adam first looked at Eve and said, "Hey, babe, want to come over to my place tonight? I make a mean baked potato," and then realized he needed a place to take her back to, people have constructed various shapes and sizes of containers to live in and protect themselves from the elements. Over time, these dwellings have evolved alongside us to become whatever we need them to be, but the original fundamental purpose has remained unchanged, keeping ourselves warm and dry. However, when the winds blow and the rains fall, you will at some point encounter a brown stain up on the ceiling and begin to realize that nature is laying siege to your castle. Hopefully, the leak isn't too severe or positioned above your grandfather's prized sawdust collection, but even if it's just a drip, it still leaves a stain overhead that looks like Fred Astaire visited your house to relieve himself after a long day of filming a royal wedding. By the way, a spray bottle of bleach can get rid of that stain once it's dry. Well, don't that just beat all tier. Slipping in the shower. There is an unimaginably long list of things we take for granted in life, such as depending on the sun to not explode, or the mail to take forever to arrive, and that our heads will stay above our feet until such a time as we decide otherwise. The floor of the shower, however, has other plans. That devious ceramic surface can get quite slippery as you line dance around the tub with your comedically oversized rubber duck, possibly leading to calamity if you get carried away. Throw soap into the mix and you can understand why I love my walk-in shower with the 2 seats and the anti-slip floor mat. Because this can cause minor injury and is spine chilling even if you don't hit the floor, this goes in the "I'm going home to mother" tier. Not having the ingredients for a recipe. Let's say you wanted to mix up a batch of the salmon patties for burger tonight. So you hold out your recipe book to take a look at how your father taught you how to make them. You mash up the salmon, you mix in the breadcrumbs and the mayonnaise, and then gadzooks, the bottle of lemon juice. It only has enough drops in it to maybe make a butterfly burp. You scramble frantically around the kitchen, scouring cabinets, hunting desperately for a forgotten spare bottle, but alas, there is no such balm in Gilead. And your salmon patties are doomed to taste just a skosh less succulent than you had hoped for. It's so deflating whenever you find out that you don't have what you need to cook what you want. I mean, sure, in the grand scheme of things, you still have food, but it still makes me sad. So I'm going to put it in the "will don't that just beat all" tier. The Existence of Plungers. I don't like arrogant inanimate objects, like traffic cones, for example. They stand there gleefully blocking my way, mocking me as I'm forced to drive around them, or refrigerator magnets, leaping off of the door and clattering so ear-splittingly loud on the floor if I dare to not devote 10 seconds to shut the door as slowly and carefully as possible, necessitating that I take my precious time out of my precious day to stoop over and pick them up when they blame me on to just jump back up onto the door of their own volition. My problem with plungers is of the same caliber. They stand there uselessly next to my toilet, laughing at me as I move them when I mop, delighting that they serve absolutely no purpose except in extreme circumstances. But at least there aren't 7 miles of them on my route home from work, so I'll put it in the it'll be fine tier. The neighbor's dog. If there's one thing that'll get me out of bed in a blind rage at midnight, it's my house floating into an iceberg. But if there's another thing, if there's two things that'll do that, it's some stupid confounded animal hollering at the top of its lungs as if people don't work for a living. I tell you, if dogs had jobs, they'd spend less time yapping and more time napping. And of course, the unhappy mistake that purports to own them never does anything about it besides half-heartedly muttering them for shush, quiet down, pretty please, quit making a fuss. Instead of taking them to the house or to the animal shelter or to the moon, do something with them so that I could sleep. The dog's fine. The dog's fine. It's just a dog doing dog things, but the owner gets an I'm going home to mother ranking. Sudden horrible internet connection. I had an entire analogy written into the script here, painting the picture of an exciting and high-energy moment in World of Warcraft where your guild is about to down a very important boss when someone disconnects. But as I was typing that into the script, I realized that, A, most people watching this probably haven't played Warcraft, so they really probably don't understand what I was talking about. But B, this concept needs no analogy, as everyone knows how frustrating it is to have potato internet. It's even worse when it comes out of nowhere and everything's been fine all day. It just gives me gas. Life goes on, though, and stepping away from the computer makes the problem irrelevant. But boy, it is not fun at all when even the internet abandons you. This lands in that this is a bit of a sticky wicket, but not to worry, here. Leaving the mailbox open in the rain. It is by no malevolence of the mail carrier that this happens to my parents and I. Whenever I first moved into this new house several months ago, my father set up 2 new matching mailboxes right next to each other because we live right next to each other. And new mailboxes that haven't been broken yet have a tendency to snap shut. Rather than just pushing the door flap until you meet resistance, you actually have to push it until you feel it click into place. And this unexpected detail has led our mail delivery person to, on several occasions, not close the mailbox fully. And of course, it rained shortly thereafter. And now, except for the occasional bill, I rarely ever get mail, and whenever I do, it makes me want to wag my tail. I mean, really, the idea that somebody actually thought enough of me to send me mail. But then here comes a veritable monsoon, and whatever that precious letter might have said now is merely ink stains on a pile of paper pulp. So I'm going to put this in the well, don't that just beat all tier. That'll do it for now. If I were to cram everything that I've written thus far into this video, we'd be here for several hours, and I know blasted well that you don't want to sit here through all of that. But I will say this list is entirely composed of things that me and my immediate associates IRL have put forward as our biggest grievances. The scope of experiences that I can express with this limited sample size is certainly not going to be enough for an exhaustive list. Now, will it? With that being said, I will now get to the question that I alluded to asking you in the very beginning. Subscriptions and likes and all that kind of stuff are at your discretion, as always. But what I will ask... Actually, no. What I'm going to beg is that you comment. Look at me, okay? Look, I'm on my knees right now. I'm on both of them. I need you to comment what you would put on this list, okay? I need you to help me expand on this compendium of ridiculousness, as I know very well that there are things that you would put on it, okay? If you can't comment because you don't have a YouTube account, seriously, dude, it takes 7 seconds to set one up and leave a comment. And it's not this overwhelming drudgery that you must think it still is if you don't have an account in 2024, okay? Tell me what else to put on this list, and I will fit it into the script for the next few dozen videos. And I will see you when those are ready. So, have a hilarious day. God. That is not fun with the knees. And don't make fun of my camo pajama pants either, okay? I know you looking at them. I know you jealous of them. You just jealous of me. You jealous of my pizza limousine, too, with the pepperoni wheels and the cheese seats.